Welcome to this podcast about the PACE approach to parenting. By the end of this, you will have an understanding of the importance of emotional connection for mental well-being, what we mean by PACE, and how to identify if this is an approach which could benefit your family. We will give you examples to help you identify this and strategies to use to improve the emotional connection between you and your child. So why is emotional connection important in parenting? The PACE approach was developed from a theory called attachment theory. Attachment being those patterns of a child's behaviour directed towards the caregiver in order to achieve physical and psychological safety. In attachment theory, this describes the particular emotional relationship a child forms with a caregiver, within which the child seeks comfort and security from the caregiver. It helps with a child's survival at biological and psychological levels and informs an infant's brain development. It can be impacted by child factors, e.g. illness, parent factors, e.g. abuse, and environmental factors, e.g. stress. Emotional connection, therefore, is safety. We know that when the potential to form a secure attachment between child and caregiver is interrupted, a child's sense of safety and ability to trust can be negatively impacted. This can have an impact on brain development and is when chronic is termed developmental trauma. When children feel scared, alone, abandoned, hurt or hungry early in their life, they have no choice but to find ways or adaptive behaviour to help them get through these times by relying on themselves. In these circumstances in particular, a hypersensitive threat response system within the brain can develop. This can be identified by observing a range of challenging behaviours as a child is experiencing a nervous system response and going into fight and flight mode more regularly than their peers do. Indeed, experiencing a chronic disrupted attachment to a caregiver is known to be an aversive childhood experience, which is linked to poorer social and emotional outcomes as the child moves into adulthood. A child who has a secure attachment with their caregiver is far less likely to present with a range of difficult and challenging behaviours and go on to have more positive experiences moving into adulthood. Chronic circumstances aside, employing the principles of PACE parenting can facilitate the ongoing strengthening of connection and security between child and caregiver. So what is meant by PACE? Playfulness, acceptance, curiosity and empathy. PACE is a way of thinking, feeling, communicating and behaving, a parenting ethos that aims to maximise connection between child and caregiver and promoting safety for the child. Informed by attachment theory, it is based on the observation that once a child feels safe within close relationships, they begin to flourish. Particularly, children and young people begin to get closer emotionally. They begin to trust. Parenting using the principles of playfulness, acceptance, curiosity and empathy helps the parent understand the meaning of their child's behaviour and stay calm and emotionally regulated as they talk with their child, even at very difficult times. This in turn helps the child remain calm and helps the parent remain emotionally available to the child. So how do we do this thing called PACE? PACE being an acronym. Each letter in the word PACE stands for an element of the whole parenting ethos. So let's begin with the P. The P is for playfulness. This is about creating an atmosphere of lightedness and interest when you communicate. It means learning how to use a light tone with your voice rather than an irritated or lecturing tone. It's about having fun and expressing a sense of joy. Notice in those situations where a playful response can diffuse tension, when a defensive or attacking response would lead to escalation. For example, your child is feeling frustrated and shouts, "I hate Dad! I wish he'd go and jump in the river." A playful response could be, "With the fishes? If he lived there, he'd have to grow gills and webbed feet like Aquaman. Wouldn't that be funny?" Generally, enhancing time spent together by encouraging playful moments helps to increase safety. Both child and adult are relaxed. Neither feels judged or criticised. These moments help reassure that times of conflict come and go. They can't harm the true depth of the parent-child relationship. Having a playful stance isn't about being funny all the time or making jokes when a child is sad. It's about helping children experience closeness and deepen attachment, which promotes safety. When children feel safe, they can take risks around opening up emotionally. A playful stance adds elements of fun and enjoyment in day-to-day life. Children are less likely to respond with anger and defensiveness when the parent has a touch of playfulness in his or her discipline. And when applied to minor behaviours, playfulness can keep it all in perspective. When children laugh and giggle, they become less defensive or withdrawn and more reflective. So the A in PACE stands for acceptance. Unconditional acceptance is at the core of the child's sense of safety. Acceptance is about actively communicating to the child that you accept them as they are, accepting without judgment the person they are and are becoming. It doesn't imply accepting behaviour, which may be hurtful or harmful to another person or to self. The parent may be firm in limiting behaviour while at the same time accepting the motives for the behaviour. Essentially, a child learns that while their behaviour may be criticised and limited, this is not the same as criticising the child's self. They then become more confident that conflict and discipline involves behaviour, not the relationship with parents or their self-worth. It's noticing behaviour and stating that it is unacceptable, but affirming that it is the behaviour, not the child. Such as, I don't feel that you're destroying things in your room is acceptable. I understand your anger at that time, but this is not an acceptable approach to dealing with that. I'd like to support you handle this in a better, less destructive way. Can we work on this together? It should be made clear to the child that the behaviour is challenged, not them as a whole. And the C in PACE, this stands for curiosity. This really is the foundation of acceptance. Making sense of how the child has learnt to behave in certain ways can help with acceptance, exploring in a non-threatening way what is going on for the child at these difficult times. Being curious without judgment is how we help children become aware of their inner life, helping them reflect upon the reasons for their behaviour and then communicate it to their parents. Curiosity is wondering about the meaning behind the behaviour for the child. Curiosity lets the child know that the adults understand. Children often know that their behaviour was not appropriate. However, they often do not know why they did it. Impulsivity can be high, for example. A curious, accepting adult can support the child to understand the why. The adult is demonstrating their desire to really help the child. There is no blame here. No intention of making the child feel that their inner life is wrong in some way. Curiosity is non-threatening. It increases safety in those situations for a child. For example, simply changing, "Why on earth did you do that? You know that's wrong. Now look at this mess." For, it seems that you are really having a difficult time just now. I'm wondering what's going on for you. Shall we maybe try and think about it together? This will really emphasise to a child that the adult is there to help and support, not judge and blame. Curiosity involves an accepting tone that conveys a desire to understand the child. What do you think was going on? What do you think that was about? Or the use of wonder statements such as, I wonder what if those tears could talk, what they would say. Or, I wonder if, where or how. It's not interpretation or fact gathering. It's just about getting to know the child and letting them know that. Curiosity must be communicated without annoyance about the behaviour. Being curious can, for example, include an attitude of being sad rather than angry when the child makes a mistake. A light, curious tone and stance can get through to a child in a way that anger never could. You might make guesses aloud about what the child might be thinking and feeling. It can be about having a conversation, almost with yourself, with the child in the room, without anticipating a response. For example, saying, "What I'm wondering is, were you feeling angry just now? I saw that you looked frustrated just before when your brother pushed past you. Do you think this could have led to this just now?" Staying curious means that both of you are less likely to feel cross or frustrated. Curiosity is non-judgmental. This can help the child to be open to how they and other people are thinking and feeling. Curiosity lets the child stay open and engaged in conversations. Children then start to reflect upon their own inner life with their parent and start to understand themselves. As the understanding deepens, the child can discover that their behaviour does not reflect something bad inside them, but rather a thought, feeling, perception or motive that was stressful, frightening or confusing, and could only be expressed in their behaviour. The E in PACE is empathy. This lets the child feel the adult's compassion for them. Being empathic means the adult actively showing the child that the child's inner life is important to the adult, and he or she wants to be with the child in her hard times. With empathy, when the child is sad or in distress, the adult is feeling the sadness and distress with her and lets the child know that. The adult is demonstrating that they know how difficult an experience is for the child. The adult is telling the child that they will not have to deal with the distress alone, that they will stay with the child emotionally, providing comfort and support, and will not abandon her when she needs the adult the most. So, is PACE for you? Could it help with the day-to-day challenges of parenting? Well, the simple answer is that PACE can benefit all parents, but in particular, if you notice your child having difficulties with their behaviour, it's probable that PACE is an approach which could achieve great change for the family as a whole. For instance, you may notice a range of challenging behaviours. School, relatives and friends may have made comments about your child's aggression or inability to play cooperatively with others. Other people may term your child's behaviour as challenging or refer to meltdowns. You may often find yourself feeling as though your child isn't listening to you, that there is something blocked in your relationship with them. Your child may like to control situations and you often feel that they rule the roost. You may have tried sticker charts and traditional punishment and reward parenting strategies, but they haven't helped at all. If any of this feels familiar, it could be that PACE can be effective and offer relief for the whole family by deepening the emotional connection between child and caregiver. So now you know more about what PACE is, let's look at how it can actually be used by you at home. Some good guidelines to use are knowing what kind of things should be increased and decreased. 3 things to work on decreasing in the home are shoulds, seclusion and sarcasm. Shoulds are when sometimes parents think their child should be able to behave or do something correctly because of their age. This can be a setup for failure. Expectations should be matched to your child's individual needs. Seclusions. This is where, in response to particularly challenging behaviours, it can be easy to fall into traps of responding in an adult-child way. But staying calm and present can help your child feel regulated. If your child is angry, still let them know you are available instead of attempting time out or seclusion, i.e. go to your room. If a child is sad, we tend to respond in a more emotionally available way. You can do this for angry behaviours as well. It's all about practicing a different approach. Sarcasm. Sometimes parents can use sarcastic phrases or responses. It can be difficult for a child to understand how genuine an adult's thoughts and feelings are towards them. This can create confused emotions and angry outbursts. Remember to use PACE and ensure empathy is genuine and avoid sounding sarcastic or flippant. 3 things to work on increasing in the home are safety, structure and seeking meaning. Safety. Being physically present with a child and emotionally available to them helps to develop a secure base and builds attachment. It also provides effective discipline and helps a child develop skills. It is important not to isolate the child or get angry, especially when a child is upset or behaving in a challenging way. Structure. Help to reduce your child's stress by structuring their routines and making choices for them, or by limiting choice to this one or that one. Confused emotions can build up around having too many choices to make. Accept and validate your child's thoughts and feelings and behaviours. You can be directive and firm with instructions while remaining attuned and empathic to your child's difficulties. Seeking meaning. When you and your child begin to understand why they do certain behaviours, it can be easier to change those behaviours. Equally, it's easier for them to accept your boundaries and consequences when they understand you are motivated by a desire to care for them. Explaining boundaries in the chart to the child in terms like, the time for coming in has been made to keep you safe because you are worth keeping safe, teaches them that they are worthy of care, makes the boundary explicit, and supports your relationship with them. It's important to remember that when using PACE, the focus is on connections, not just for your child but for you also. PACE focuses on behaviour changes and recognising the change is not always easy, but with practice, PACE can support you with noticing and understanding your own behaviour and language responses. Parenting in the moment. There are steps that can be helpful to take when parenting a child. These steps can make it easier to stay open and engaged with your child rather than becoming irritated or defensive by their behaviour. It is important to make an emotional connection with your child before providing a response to the behaviour that has occurred. When this happens, your child is more likely to experience acceptance of who they are underneath their outward behaviour, and sanctions are more effective. Step 1. Notice. Look around. Notice what is happening. Do you need to step in right now and take any action? Step in if there's any risk you immediately need to deal with. Step 2. Before you act or say anything, check in with your own responses. How are you feeling? Do you feel annoyed, defensive, angry, useless? It is important to understand how you are feeling in order to remain open and engaged. If you recognise that your own feelings may make the situation worse, take a break for a few minutes before you respond. Step 3. Think about what you need to provide, how you are feeling emotionally, and how do you think your child feels emotionally. Do you think your child is ready to reflect on what has happened with your support? At this stage, it is helpful to apply the acceptance and empathy parts of PACE. Step 4. Demonstrate curiosity through your language. Show a real and genuine interest when exploring what has happened. One of the worst ways to start a question is by starting with the word why. The word why can seem accusatory and blameful. Remember, at this step, you are attempting to explore what has happened, not questioning, but showing curiosity around what has actually happened. Instead of asking, "Why have you done that?" you could ask questions such as, "I wonder what's going on? I can see you're really upset right now," or "How come?" or "I can see that this is hard for you," or "I wonder why you're shouting so much today." Be curious out loud. It can be helpful. Empathy allows the child to feel their feelings, not suppress them. It encourages the release of difficult emotions. Step 5. Explore what has happened underneath the behaviour you have seen or witnessed. Try to make some meaningful connections using acceptance and empathy. Explore your child's thoughts, motives, responses, etc., and demonstrate your connection by showing your child that you are trying to get it. Step 6. Now would be the time to respond to the behaviour. If a behaviour has occurred that requires a sanction, then this still needs to be applied. PACE is not about excusing behaviours or dismissing them. However, dealing with the behaviour happens at this later stage, which will make discipline more effective. Provide a consequence if there needs to be one. Increase periods of supervision if required. You could also explore problem-solving skills with your child to come up with actions and ideas on how to resolve something. Step 7. This is the last step, and this step focuses on repair. It is important following something happening that everyone involved parts ways with the relationship still intact. It is important that your child understands that whatever has happened has not affected your relationship. You may also need to help your child repair a relationship with someone else. This concludes our CAMHS podcast on using a PACE approach. Thank you for listening and take care.